I was born near Whitewood, South Dakota, in the little Danish community, and since you were born there, you were automatically Lutheran, because if you're Dane, you're Lutheran. My great-grandfather moved to this area in late 1800s. It wasn't homesteading yet, but he thought that was a good area to set up. There were other Danes in the area, thus the Danish community. However, now they had a community and no church. My great-grandfather, whose name was George Weisman, or Weisman if you're born in America, donated some land, and on that land they built this church. And so this church that you were seeing was originally built in 1896. It is still on the family farm, on the family ranch, and is still an active cemetery. You have to have been born to the original families in order to be buried there. Dad grew up in this area, and he talked about as a kid, the pastor or minister came down usually only once a month. Sometimes he would come for funerals, but sometimes those funerals had to wait until he actually got there, because he was the pastor for the entire area, and he would ride the train down from Deadwood. So services on the Sunday that the pastor came was all 4 services of the month. And Dad really hated it when there were 5 Sundays in the month, because that meant 5 services or 5 hours of being at the church, because each service was an hour long. The little church that my great-grandfather had built, the population outgrew, and so they moved into Whitewood to the small church there. And my earliest memories of being in this church was sitting between Mom and Dad. My sister was 10 years older, so she played the organ. I could see her sitting at the organ, and I would watch Mom and Dad, first this side and this side, while the sermon was going on, which I thought lasted forever. And I'd wait to see which one fell asleep first. I'd take bets with myself to see who fell asleep first. And then when they were both asleep, I would try very carefully to slide out between them and get down under the pew and either go sit with Grandma and Grandpa or over with my brother, or wander away if nobody noticed that I'd left. And I often got in trouble for that, and that hasn't changed much over the last number of years. But they taught me about the value of church family, and they taught me that the church family is there for you. The church family, when there is a crisis, the church family reaches out and takes care of each other, whether it's doing a potluck supper to raise money for a family, or it's coming together to get the crops together because someone was hurt, and so the families, the ranchers, would all go and do whatever needed to be done, branding the cows, gathering in the crops, whatever it was. It was about taking care of each other. So why am I talking about this? Because my dad and my mother are my saints. We had a minister that Mom and Dad were very fond of. And this is where I watched my father about grace, because this particular minister fell out of grace with the church, did something that my father thought was reprehensible, and was asked to leave the church. And my father spent a long time mulling that over, and I watched him mull that over, and finally coming to the conclusion that he may have been a minister, but he was a person. And what he wanted as a person outweighed his sort of thoughts about being a minister and a leader. And my dad had to come to forgive him for that. Mom and Dad were very good examples, and they are my saints. They are the ones that taught me about grace. They are the ones that taught me about forgiveness. Certainly forgiveness, because I wasn't a particularly easy child or teenager. I got better as an adult. But you know, they were always there, and they always loved me, and they always told me that no matter what I wanted to do, if I had God first and thought about that, I could do whatever it is I wanted. And so that's where I am with my story.